Hey, welcome to the Rain and Morale podcast. So do you ever feel like screaming out in the office, on Zoom or outside the school gates, for the love of God, come on, really? Then if this is you and you're looking for an honest, fun and frank podcast on life and business, then sit back and listen to me, Rain and Morale. I'll be bringing great people on the show to talk, share and debate their life experiences and business challenges, keeping the show unpolished, but in a fun and unique British style, with sarcasm, tenacity, maybe a few swear words or tears. This podcast keeps it real, honest, raw, and removes the bullshit in the only way I know how, through authenticity and getting shit done. Think of it less like the Housewives of New York or Towie with the lipo and drama, and more like the house lives of the real world. I hope you'll take something away to be better informed, laugh, smile, or maybe even finally getting the confidence to shout, come on really. So enjoy. Hi Cherique, welcome to the Rain and Morale podcast. Can't speak this morning, how are you?
I'm very good, Rona. Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be on.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm really excited about this topic, two huge passions of mine. For all the listeners, I'm delighted to welcome Cherique Pohl to the podcast. Now, Cherique and I actually met because she very kindly spoke at an event, a fundraising event for Education Africa. And when I got to learn more about what she did, I just thought, this is a no-brainer. We need to have you on the show. So Cherique is originally from South Africa and works in wildlife conservation. And I guess, as you can imagine, over the years of travelling, Cherique has obviously experienced what is happening to our natural habitats and biodiversity and animals. So through her incredible experience with the National Geographic and the BBC, she took the ball by the horns and created her own business called IMPACTWILD. And it's all about storytelling and how we can use that to create active change that can help benefit the biodiversity crisis. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you so much, Rona. That's a fantastic intro.
You can pay me later. So listen, let's dive straight into it. So first of all, tell us a little bit about your experience working with sort of mainstream like National Geographic, BBC, and then how and why, what was the real turning point for you to set up IMPACTWILD?
Yeah, so it's been about 14 years or so that I've been working in mainstream wildlife television. And I'll just stress that with the National Geographic, it was more on the business side. So distribution, which was great. It wasn't great at the time because I wanted to be in the field, but it was a fantastic foundation. So business side with National Geographic for about 4 or 5 years. And then got my dream job at the BBC Natural History Unit, which lasted about 9 years. So that's really where I started getting the opportunity to specialize in wildlife conservation specific programming. So I popped in and out of development and production. So I got to spend quite a lot of time on the front line and sort of ended up specializing in the more harder hitting conservation stories. So yeah, I mean, we covered so many stories of illegal wildlife trade and living with rangers all over Africa and really frontline stuff. So I think it was pretty much inevitable that I became obsessed. I was utterly obsessed with wildlife conservation because I had so much information coming my way every day about the state of the planet and state of wildlife, and the amazing people on the front line. That's the best thing. So I think it just built over the years this real obsession with seeing the power that we have in storytelling, not only mainstream television storytelling, but storytelling at its core, the information that we can transfer inside storytelling. And I basically wanted to do more. I didn't want to just have people see the programs. Like great, you have new information and you feel inspired, but what now? So this is where impact production comes in. And I learned about this term that was actually, I think it was about 2012, 2013. where it was actually it became a thing, and I think it was a Doc Society that named it impact production.
Right.
Where basically, it's about utilizing the power inside the story to target specific audiences for a specific change, basically. So whatever your film sort of covers, and the problem or the crisis or the injustice that your film communicates, you want to do something with that audience. So this is why I started IMPACTWILD, to really specialize in it, because impact production has been a lot more used in social justice documentary world, and not so much in wildlife television or wildlife documentary. So that I want to see the power of what we can do for the biodiversity crisis, this wildlife crisis that we're so in the slap bang middle of, we're on the edge. So it's just an amazing, powerful tool that we are maximizing to see how we can benefit the natural world.
So I guess that's the really important part. Somebody like me, who I guess sees content like this, often has that sense of being very overwhelmed and, out of sight, out of mind sometimes, and the so what. So how do you, when you're taking on a project, do you start with the end in mind and then go, well, this is the action I need, so how do I create that story, and how does it work?
Yeah, so I suppose there's two things. Either impact producers can make the film itself, or you sort of slot onto a film. So there's various different stages, but what I like to do, and this is what I'm busy with, we're busy with a huge project actually, about the Congo Basin and forest elephants. So for impact, it's obviously all about the goal. What do you want to achieve? What is that problem that the species is facing, or the ecosystem, or your story wants to take on? What is the injustice you want to take on? What is the audience? Who are the audiences that's going to change this? And often there's various audiences, so you need various strategies to reach these audiences. But it's really, I like to do it straight from the beginning as you write the film, to incorporate impact. And this isn't normally done because often in production and television, you don't always have time, budget, hands to actually focus on impact. So this is also something we're working on to make it more mainstream. So for even the content in your film to be driven by that end goal is so important. So you have your film that can obviously be broadcast internationally and sort of build your audience and inform and inspire. But then around your film, you can have various impact strategies that target much more specific audiences. Right. So that could literally be, is the problem in the Congo that kids in schools don't even know what elephants look like? So you can either design educational screenings, educational content to screen all over rural Africa, wherever you're dealing with, or even virtual reality projects that can inspire kids even more, being sort of immersed in a herd or something. But it's often also lobbying. Do you want to? Is your film taking on specific policy change that's going to benefit a species or a community or an ecosystem? So I mean, it's vast. It's really, really vast what you can do with this. But I like to incorporate it from the beginning. But you can have a film and also design. Sort of halfway through the film or at the end of a film, come in and actually strategize from there.
I guess a lot of what we see sometimes is very kind of expose. It's very much that kind of gut-wrenching, did you know this happens? And so I guess it's slightly sad in a way that impact isn't the kind of main objective from the beginning, because it is the expose, it is the so what, and then it's like, well, who's going to do what about it, I guess. So Can you talk us through a couple of the kind of projects that you've worked on and how it will help drive impact and change?
Yeah, so it's an exciting one, this, because this isn't as part. So my company is very, very young. It's 18 months old, which is why we're still working on our projects and learning a lot along the way. But this is a project that I did as part of the BBC Natural History Unit, where we really started sort of playing with this and seeing what impact inside that framework could be. It's a series called Bears About the House, and I think it broadcast in 2020. Okay. So we spent about a year with an amazing team in Laos, who rescue bears from the illegal bear trade. So it really, because I specialize in immersive filmmaking, I did with the BBC, you spend a lot of time on the ground. Mm-hmm. So first of all, it's no filmmaker or impact producer is ever going to sort of waltz in and save the day. So partnerships are absolute key. So you work with the grassroots or international organizations and communities and experts in those fields to really make sure that your targets are correct and the audience, like they basically core to your strategizing. Anyway, with Bears About the House, we made a 2-part series for primetime BBC2. 5 minutes in, you can see bears in bile farms. It's dark topics, but actually we managed to get that on primetime TV, which was amazing for a BBC audience anyway. And so few people know about the bear trade. So that's actually key. The first thing that we realized is how few people know about the illegal bear trade and bear bile farms. So now we had an opportunity to talk about this topic and actually just raise awareness. That's number one key. But then working closely with Free the Bears as well, we identified that the main thing that we can do in this framework is actually drive support and funding towards the organization, because that's the main thing they needed. So luckily, always is the case. But luckily, the series did well, and even to today, we get feedback from the CEO, Matt Hunt. Basically, up to today, they got enough funding to build more space for more than 50 extra bears. Amazing. And during COVID, this is during a time where most grassroots organizations or any NGO really suffered. So it came at such a great time where the organization was actually making enough money to expand and to rescue more bears. And what we did as well as part of the series was help Free the Bears build that relationship, or just sort of add something positive to the relationship between the Lao government and the organization, because the Lao government are the people that decide to rescue bears and close bear bile farms. So it was very important for us to show the good things that the government do. And I know for a fact that the series was actually shown at the UK embassy in Laos to all of the officials there, and it really helped further discussions around closing the last bear bile farms in Laos. I think there's about 100 bears in captivity at the moment. So that's sort of inside television. But yeah, that's
actually, you say that quite matter of factly. Actually, that's huge, because you raise awareness, people don't get it or understand what it is or what it's used for, and then you've got that interconnected partnerships between the charities, the NGOs, and the government, and that's huge. Absolutely Rona, huge.
We really become a vehicle to amplify the good work that's already being done. That's what we do. It's about working with those people, identifying what do you need, what's the biggest problem here, and then seeing how you can benefit with this global stage that you bring. So yeah, I should feel more proud. I know we just sort of
no, you
continue.
should. You should for sure. And actually, that's a really nice, sort of sentiment, because we do know when we work in this space, there are so many bloody incredible people doing thankless, tireless work all day, every day, and just never being given the opportunity to have that exposed and implement changes. And it is frustrating that, but equally exciting that maybe a television program aired on a big channel somewhere in the world can tip a governmental policy into action. And I guess that's what's exciting.
Exactly, Rona. I think for me, and I get so flippant excited when I think about all of the potential, because for me, it's about having seen all of these, like you say, unbelievably inspiring. I mean, it's people on the front line that you would just be so proud to be, to say that you're a human being alongside them. It's amazing. And this is a tool where we actually bridge the gap between this international audience and that person on the front line who 99.9% of the time work with slim to no resources. Yeah. So there's an actual role that we can play here in London, in New York, wherever. And then also design these strategies so that the international public can support different kinds of changes, whether, like we say, policy change or supporting kids' education or whatever. So yeah, it's really powerful. I truly believe that impact production is one of the most effective wildlife conservation tools we have today. That's how I feel about it.
Well, actually, what's quite interesting is that I guess impact production, and then we look at, say, the Sustainable Development Goals, that could be relevant to every single one of those, because it's about impacting effective, sustainable change, be that poverty, be that education, healthcare, whatever. So I think for me, it's a much wider piece. And I'm sure, again, there are a lot of people out there trying to interject that. What project or animal conservation country would you really love to get your hands on, that you are like, I need the world to hear about this?
Yes. Well, good question, because that's sort of why I left mainstream television to take on this company. So our first project, I started with a blank page. I'm South African. I have this amazing just obsession and love for Africa. And there's so much to protect and save there still, like everywhere. But, you have to start somewhere, Rona. So I started researching, and it's been about 8 months now. Where can we make a significant amount? What animal species can we connect with to make a significant difference for people and wildlife in Africa? So we decided on the Congo rainforest and the critically endangered forest elephant inside the rainforest. It's so critical to have the forest elephant in this rainforest ecosystem, because about 30-40% of tree species depend on the elephant to grow. And they manage, it's amazing, they manage the forest, and they determine whether the forest is healthy or not. So
it's that kind of posh migration of poo, isn't it? Because they are so efficient at traveling distance and sending the seeds, and
and I know everyone, I'm also I love the small animals and the things you never get to see on television, but we do need to look at these, what species will attract people's attention. And it's not only in reality that we chose that, but it's also a magnificent animal that very few people know of, because they're very difficult to film. So we won't go too much into the project, but that's my dream, is to raise awareness for the Congo rainforest that affects you and me as we're sitting here, because it's the second largest rainforest on the planet. And
that's part of the Green Wall, isn't it, in Africa? That
Yeah, above that we have the green wall as well. So yeah, that's an amazing project that's happening as well. So positive stuff happening, but yeah, these areas need attention, and they need not only do people need to know about it, but they also need to support it. Really, they need to get hands-on in supporting these spaces.
Yeah, and I'd read recently, or had heard recently, about the carbon sequestration benefits of animals like elephants and the whales. And actually, you know, how do we understand the kind of natural capital if we look at them as I hate to say it, a commercial asset? You know, what does that value drive? And it's like you say, from the very tiny to the very big, that interconnectedness between them. I adore elephants, absolutely adore. I've just realised I've got like some sort of animal print t-shirt on. I'm like, that looks really cheesy, like I planned that for the
I nearly wore mine. Imagine that. Imagine we had the same outfit on. I have a little leopard print top as well. That would have been awesome. We should have decided before we started this.
You could have got it. You should have at least got animal. Come on, Cherique.
So boring.
No, so I guess obviously that's going to be a huge project for you. Do you foresee that taking up all of your time, or for the next foreseeable future, or have you got other things that you're hoping to work on?
Well, yes, we have a few other things going, but I think part of taking on this big project over the next 2-3 years is measuring the impact and finding ways. That's a difficult thing in many instances. So yes, we're taking it quite slow, even in the development process, because all of these decisions we're making is tied into the end result, the goal. And to prove the goal at the end of the day, we need to measure it. It's such a boring word, I know, but it's so crucial. So this will be the main project going forward, but we also have actually in that region quite a few smaller projects happening as well. Yeah,
I can imagine.
I just feel because it's so impact focused, to focus in that one region for all of our projects at the moment is quite key, because you do need to understand the environment and the cultures and the people that you're dealing with, so that you can speak to them and be tailor the project to them. So I just feel all of our attention at the moment has to be in one place.
Yeah, and I guess, like you say, just by saving one part of that ecosystem, everybody is impacted. So from the children, from the farmers, the education, to the health of the soil, to the animals in the trees, to everything. And I guess there is something to be said for, I guess what you don't realise when you're watching productions and films, and that's one of the things I do love about the Frozen Planet or the BBC series with David Attenborough, because you always get those 10 minutes at the end, and I hope in some ways you do that with yours, because you just think you rock up and people go, oh, it'd be amazing just to turn up and film that. Are you going to sit there for 4 years and wait for that one moment to happen? We underappreciate what goes on.
Rona, yes. Oh my goodness, I can't tell you what goes into these programs. It honestly is 2 or 4 years of your life. And just to put in perspective, this Bears series that we filmed 300 hours for every 1 hour that the audience sees.
Wow.
So yes, there's a lot of filming. This is now observational documentary and not sort of the David Attenborough blue chip stuff. But yes, the ratio there is also very high, even though it's much more scripted. But yes, it's also the best job in the world. Let's face it. So none of us can complain. It doesn't matter how hard we work.
I am. If I'm honest, there's not many things that like I get jealous about, and I'm always saying to my kids, don't be jealous of anything or anyone, but the combination to travel, be in nature with animals, and just I'm like, am I too old? I'm 45. Can I change careers? And then I'm like, oh, but I've got 2 young kids. Could I get them adopted? Get them out of the way? I can only imagine it's heartbreaking. I could and tiring, but the value of reward must be amazing.
Yeah, it really is. Honestly, to be invited into the behind the scenes of grassroots organizations or national parks, and people inviting you into their lives, their incredible lives that you can't believe exists, but you're so humbled also to have to sit there and look at these animals. You just have to look at them because you're filming them, and tell people around the world about these incredible people and animals. So it honestly, truly is a privilege, and that is also why I feel this industry needs to take a lot more responsibility for doing better, because the natural history television industry is unbelievably sort of, sustainability needs a lot of attention. The footprints
it's underrepresented, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the footprints are immense. And I know, luckily, this industry, at least here in Bristol, the wildlife television capital of the world, is doing a lot to address this and make sure that our actual footprint and impact and sustainability impact is not as terrible as it is at the moment.
Yeah. So, and how do you kind of, I suppose, when you're traveling, how do you try and make sure that your company and production is as sustainable as possible? What sort of things do you try and implement? Let's be honest, we haven't got hydrogen planes and we haven't got a solution to that yet. So anybody going, well, you fly around the world doing it. Seriously, we've got to just use the tools we have right now. But how do you as a company try and make yourself as sustainable as possible?
Yeah, I mean, if we don't fly or use equipment, we're also not going to have programs. So there's always going to be an impact. It doesn't matter what we do, there's going to be an impact. And it's just down to us to make it more positive than negative. So every single step that every decision we need to make in this production, and I know the television industry does that more and more these days as well, is, you look at your filming schedule, and if you can squeeze more shoots into one section, because with one shoot goes crew, you take 20 massive pelly cases as excess baggage. Right. You're basically, the less you can fly, obviously the better. So it's all about trying to move your schedule a little bit so that it just makes less of less flying. Then also, what happened during the pandemic, which in our industry we were never used to hiring local talent, which is silly.
Which is crazy. Yeah,
ridiculous. We know that's silly, but with COVID-19 hitting, a lot more local crew all over the world got the opportunity to work for these mainstream production houses. So there's a lot of fantastic talent out there, Africa and wherever, that never used to have the opportunity. So it's a lot easier now to actually hire local crew rather than fly everyone out from.
And that's
from
impact in itself, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's creating impact and people opportunities. You might, like you say, don't get the chance or don't have the connections.
Yes.
Because I guess film and TV is always seen as very glamorous and, you're in the know and all of that. But, anyone who travels a lot knows it. It's not at all. It really isn't. Are there any topics that are a no-go for you that you would, if I said to you, here's a project, I'll 100% fund it, you can have whatever you want. Are there topics that you would say no?
As long as it is for the benefit of biodiversity, specifically wildlife in my company's space, I feel passionate about everything in terms of producing, well, a better life for humanity and the whole planet. But as long as it's about wildlife and it's taking on a problem, an injustice, I'll do it. So right. I'm trained in sort of hostile environments, and I actually thrive in those regions where it's a little bit more, well, just a bit more tricky and possibly a little bit more dangerous, or, film crews don't necessarily always want to go there, which is also part of the reason being outside of the mainstream production houses is such a benefit now, because we can spend more time and go to these regions that perhaps other mainstream productions can't go to for an extended amount of time at the moment. So I don't know if there's anything I won't do, as long as it is a voice for wildlife.
Yeah. And have you ever started a project? I guess where I'm getting to on this one is, have you ever started a project where you've soon very quickly realised there's a lot of greenwashing and a lot of potential for this to be seen in a light that isn't true? Have you ever come across a brief or something where you've gone, oh, I know where this is going?
So that exists, no doubt. I luckily haven't been in that space, mostly because I've chosen my own projects. I've never had to be given a brief that takes on anything television doesn't really work with how to explain this now, but television wouldn't work with say Shell or a corporation to make a program. I've been lucky enough to not have to be involved in that side. We work with NGOs on the ground that tend to do things, research or saving wildlife from the illegal wildlife trade. But there's an element, and this might not be 100% what you mean, but there's things like using cute animals in programs to reach an audience. That's always something that we really need to discuss, or in the blue chip, as we say, the David Attenborough kind of programs, not showing what happens behind the camera, or there 100 cars waiting to see the animal that you're filming. So some of that can sit a little bit wrong with me. I'm quite an extreme person when it comes to sort of injustice and shouting about it, but these tools are very useful often. And it really is just about discussing, how much do you see this cute bear before you cut to the bear bile farm, and then at least people know they're going back to a cute bear before they perhaps go on to something a little bit hard to watch. So there's reason for some of these, but no, luckily, I mean, if I ever sit in I ask myself also often, what if Shell comes to you to make a program? I mean, I probably wouldn't want to do it. I understand that there also needs to be a bit of a gray space where you work with corporate and you work with these entities, as long, I think, as they aren't using me or any of the projects I'm involved in to make them look better. I
totally get you, because I think you're right. We can't not work with these people. There has to be that element, as long as that individual or corporation is willing to go, we've kind of screwed up here, we're still not going to be perfect after this, but this is something that we can impact, as long as it's not hiding all the stuff that they're doing. So I totally get that. I'm also starting to imagine another side of you, Cherique, as kind of guerrilla warfare trained and hostage negotiator in the jungle of the Congo. I mean, seriously,
my cup of tea.
I've traveled Africa a fair amount, probably most rural would have been, I guess, Kenya and Uganda in the Bawindi forest.
Amazing.
And I think spending time with kind of pygmy tribes who have been displaced and really are there as a bit of a tourist trap, they're the only ones left. But I think in the midst of somewhere like the Congo and other countries in Africa, it is really dangerous. You can't just walk about pretending, especially, as a white person, female, blonde. I mean, you're hitting all the things here that expose you. So I think it must be very dangerous at times.
Yes, I'm absolutely. It can be also, we can be a danger. We can attract danger for local people as well. So honestly, this is something we have to be so mindful of. So we no film crew should ever just pop in unannounced and start. Well, I mean, it's different in news, and I only speak for wildlife documentary now, but I work with existing organizations. I work with the experts in that field and fixers in that field. So before you even step out there, you've built your relationships from Bristol. You've written an extensive risk assessment and also how to get yourself out of situations. Obviously, things can still happen, but you'll be a very irresponsible filmmaker if you do not look at all the most horrific things that could happen. Whether that's medical or kidnap or anything. So yes, you need to assess everything, and then you need to assess whether it's worth you going out and whether you're going to put anyone else's life in danger.
And that's I guess that's a really fair point as well. By you doing what you do and exposing some of these people who often are doing things quite behind the scenes, suddenly that exposure can create danger, can't it?
Absolutely. Goodness me, that's one of the biggest responsibilities of documentary filmmakers is when you work with people or film, whether it's the good or the bad guy, it's about really being honest from the get-go about what this film can mean for you, because we're also dealing with cultures potentially that isn't like you and me. Some of those cultures don't watch TV and on Facebook and social media all day long, so they don't really understand the repercussions of getting a face that's on a global stage. It could be fatal for them sometimes. So every single story you make is so different, but you just really need to understand that you're very responsible for people's futures and lives. It's a very big responsibility.
No, absolutely. Well, listen, ending on a kind of a more positive note, I think certainly keep that kick-ass Cherique going and filming and taking on these amazing impact projects. I think it'll be really great to see in a few years the outcomes of the project in the Congo and the elephants and how that's created a story and impact. So absolutely keep us posted on that, and just thank you so much for sharing more about impact production and the importance of it and some of the detail.
Well, thanks for having me. Honestly, it takes a lot to sit and listen to me for 45 minutes or whatever. So no, it's an absolute delight to talk about this amazing space. And yes, let's see what happens. Watch this space. I'm excited to share.
Oh, I can't wait. And a big thank you again for helping support the event with Education Africa, because we had a few conservation projects going up for auction as well. So thank you so much. Have an awesome week and safe travels and filming.
Thank you, and you, Rona. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
So that's it. You've made it. The show's over. Thank you for being with us. I hope you've been able to take something away, maybe solve a problem, or just know you're not alone. Here's hoping it made you smile with a few laughs along the way. Please feel free to find me on all social media channels, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just search the Road and Morale podcast. Have an awesome day and see you next time.